When I say karate, what do you think of? There's a few ways you can go. You can either think of Busta Rhymes fighting Michael Myers, all those McDojo karate schools with that little tree logo they have, or maybe you think of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Lyoto Machida, or even MVP. Regardless of what came to your mind, one thing is for sure, karate is probably the most underrated fighting style you can have in the world of mixed martial arts. But why is that the case, and how come every single time you walk by a karate school, you invariably see the instructor having a pillow fight with all of his juvenile students? I mean, invariably, that is what you're going to come across. Well, let's tackle this together. The World Karate Federation, also known as the WKF, is the premier organization for karate competitions. If you just look up on YouTube karate tournaments in the 1980s, you're going to see some full contact fights and some pretty gnarly knockouts. Now, completely coincidentally, the WKF was founded in the year 1990, and today, karate competition is very soft compared to how it was back then. In fact, if you strike your opponent too hard, you get penalized in today's karate. And while it is a lot safer this way, you can definitely make an argument that it's affected the process of developing real fighters. But believe it or not, this isn't the reason why karate is so niche today. Fighters like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Michael Venom Page actually come from this point fighting karate background, and they're very successful in the world of mixed martial arts. And we'll get into why it translated so well for them. But the reason karate fell off so badly is because, well, capitalism. As a kid, I grew up doing taekwondo, and I was pretty legit. I got my second degree black belt when I was 11 years old. So yes, I was an absolute monster. Well, not really. My master was a national champion in the 80s. And just based on the stories he told us about how he was trained by his hardcore Korean masters, then comparing that to how he trained us, it was like Guantanamo Bay versus preschool. He was trained for the sole reason of being a competitor. We were trained in a way so that our parents kept paying the $200 a month. And that is what happened with not just karate, but pretty much every single martial art in the world. It's even starting to happen with jiu-jitsu. These sports are getting watered down in order to make the most money possible. Now, don't get me wrong, doing taekwondo as a kid, it wasn't a complete waste of time. I did develop very good kicks that transferred over for me when I started fighting amateur Muay Thai, but I didn't become a fighter until I started Muay Thai. It's just that simple. When the first half of class is practicing pretty kicks, and then the second half is playing a game, 99.9999999999999% of the kids doing this are not going to grow up to be competitors. It's just that simple. But like I said earlier, for the very, very small amount who do, and become elite in these point fighting systems, they have some huge advantages that other MMA fighters just don't have. Karate competition is a point-based system. To run through it quickly, you get a point if you land a punch to the body or the head, you land 2 points if you kick the body, 3 points if you kick the head, you get 3 points if you can sweep or take down your opponent, and then an additional 3 points if you punch them after they hit the ground. As you can probably tell, this entire rule set is built upon not getting hit. So that's what these guys become masters at. The sideways stance minimizes the amount of surface area your opponent has to land strikes on you. It also allows very quick movement forward and backward, perfect for lunging in and then lunging out. Of course, this is very unorthodox, and something I hear a lot from people like Joe Rogan, for example, is that whenever Stephen Wonderboy or MVP are fighting, you always hear, man, you cannot find anybody to replicate this style. And while that is true and is an advantage, at the end of the day, even if your sparring partner could do this, and there were more people out there who could fight like this, the advantages and the disadvantages are all going to be there no matter what. Whenever you watch Wonderboy or MVP fight, they always use the sideways stance and constantly bounce back and forth. Every single time they do this, they're essentially feinting an entry. This all makes it extremely hard to tell when they're going to lunge in with an insane amount of speed and catch you with just a couple really quick punches and be out again. Now, of course, the leg kick is there a lot more frequently with the sideways stance, but two things. One, they all have the ability to switch stances, which decreases the amount of damage you'll take to a leg by 50%. Two, both of these guys are masters at using their blitz the second you throw that leg kick. So you are going to get countered unless you can hide it very well. And if you try to close the distance on them with punches, they'll meet you halfway, and they are quicker than you because they can enter a whole lot faster and you're getting countered again. Wonderboy was just absolutely eating Kevin Holland alive by doing this. And also, due to the fact their hands are so low, their punches come from different directions than you're expecting. That's tough enough to deal with on its own, but then having Wonderboy follow a kick right behind his unorthodox punches directly over your shoulder and knocking you out is enough to ruin a weekend, that's for sure. Another defensive advantage it gives is it's impossible to shoot a double leg on him. By standing sideways, the only thing you're giving your opponent is a single leg, and unless you're Chris Weidman, this is harder to finish. The only way to get a double leg on these guys is if you back them up against the fence and force them to straighten out a bit more. This happened to Wonderboy when he fought... It was the Muslim guy who has the buzz cut and he trains with Habib, and he was in that Instagram video where he was taking pictures with the belt and the fan asked him to get out of the photo with the belt. He beat Gilbert Burns when Gilbert Burns tore his shoulder like in the first round. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Steve made a smart decision trying to get that to the ground so bad because before he did so, he was getting lit up with side kicks, front leg hook kicks, spinning wheel kicks. For one, the bladed stance makes it much easier to spin. And the reason why it's good to throw spinning kicks is because everybody more or less in MMA fights in a kind of a Muay Thai boxing hybrid stance. This stance is designed to block roundhouse kicks. So it is really easy to sneak kicks right through the middle. Now, Lyoto Machida didn't use as much of a bladed stance as these prior two examples, but his attacks were still built upon exploiting this weakness in the Thai stance. He's got multiple front kick knockouts, even a Karate Kid crane kick just snuck right through the guard of Randy Couture because it comes right down the middle. It's the same reason why Wonderboy is so good with his side kick. It's easy to land with the opponent standing squared, and he's so skillful with it. It's basically like a jab. As far as weaknesses go, it has two pretty significant ones. For one, like I said earlier, it is always susceptible to a leg kick. Very high-level fighters have their way of addressing it, but at the end of the day, it is borderline impossible to turn your leg a complete 180 degrees to check the kick. The other massive one is that front kick to the knee, the same one Darren Till used to really mess up Wonderboy's legs. It is just nasty. You're basically stomping on your opponent's knee joints in a direction they're not meant to go. It was so bad, Wonderboy came out after that Darren Till fight and said he hopes they make that kick illegal. But at the end of the day, just like with any fighting style or any fighting stance, it has its plus or minuses. Point is, it's a very effective style that we just don't see because, unfortunately, the martial art it comes from is, well, dying.